People think trucking is just miles of asphalt, radio chatter, and bad coffee. They imagine the danger is mechanical, brakes failing, tires blowing out, black ice sneaking up on you when you least expect it. But the real danger of the road isn't something you can fix with a wrench. It's the silence. The kind of silence that settles in when civilization disappears and the world feels unfinished. Like God stopped building it halfway through and forgot to come back. I learned that the hard way one winter night in the United States. A night I still can't talk about without feeling the temperature drop around me, no matter where I am. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm a long-haul truck driver, and at the time this happened, I'd been driving across America for just over 9 years. I'd hauled everything from refrigerated food to hazardous materials, crossed deserts that felt like ovens, and mountain passes that looked like the end of the world. I thought I'd seen it all. I was wrong. That run was supposed to be routine. I'd picked up a double trailer load from a logistics hub in Idaho, headed east toward Montana, cutting through long stretches of wilderness most people only ever see on satellite maps. The kind of highways where cell service disappears without warning, and the radio fades into static for miles at a time. It was late January. The snow had been falling all day, not aggressively, not in blinding sheets, but steady, patient, like it had nowhere else to be. By the time night settled in, the world outside my windshield looked muted and unreal. The trees along the highway stood stiff and black, their branches heavy with snow, frozen mid-gesture, like they were reaching for something that never came. I remember thinking how quiet it felt. Not peaceful quiet, watchful quiet. The truck's heater was working overtime, humming softly beneath the dashboard. My headlights carved 2 narrow tunnels through the darkness, revealing nothing but falling snow and the reflective eyes of road signs flashing by like brief warnings. I was alone. No convoy, no traffic in either direction. That should have been my first warning. Most truckers prefer truck stops or roadside motels. Warm food, bathrooms, human voices. Me? I'd gotten used to stopping wherever the road felt right. Call it confidence. Call it stupidity. I'd packed my own food, simple stuff, instant noodles, canned chili, protein bars. I liked pulling over at scenic stretches, places where the road curved away from everything man-made, and you could pretend, just for a minute, that you were the last person alive. That night, fatigue finally caught up with me. Snow slows everything down. Your speed drops. Your reaction time tightens. Your brain works harder just to stay focused. After nearly 14 hours on the road, my shoulders ached and my eyes burned. I spotted a wide gravel turnout carved into the side of the highway, bordered by thick forest on both sides. No signs, no lights, just an open stretch where trucks had clearly parked before. I eased the rig in, set the brakes, and let the engine idle for a moment before shutting it down. The silence after the engine cut off felt too complete, like someone had stuffed cotton into the world. Snow fell gently around the truck, tapping against the metal roof like fingertips. I pulled the insulated curtains across the windshield and side windows, heavy black fabric designed to keep light in and prying eyes out. Once they were drawn, the cab became its own small universe. No outside, no inside, just me. I heated water using the small electric kettle, poured it over the noodles, and ate slowly while scrolling through my phone. No signal. Of course, I checked the time. I had maybe 1 hour, tops. In heavy snowfall, you can't afford to sleep too long. Snow packs under the tires. Ice forms beneath the weight of the rig. You wait too long, and you're stuck. I leaned back against the sleeper bunk, Boots still on, jacket zipped halfway up. Didn't turn on the cabin lights, just let the dim glow of the dashboard fade away. That's when I noticed how quiet it really was. Not even wind, just snow. At first I thought it was nothing, a trick of the mind, the kind of imagined noise your brain invents when it's overtired. But then I heard it again. Crunch. Soft. Deliberate. The unmistakable sound of footsteps on snow. I froze. I told myself it had to be an animal. A deer. Maybe a wolf, though they usually keep their distance from highways. Still, something felt off. The steps were slow, measured, not circling, not darting away, coming closer. I held my breath, every muscle in my body tightening as I strained to listen. Crunch. Crunch. Closer now. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, loud enough that I worried it might give me away. The curtains were drawn. The lights were off. From the outside, the truck probably looked abandoned. I prayed whoever, or whatever it was, would believe that. The footsteps stopped, right beside the cab. So close I could almost feel the presence through the metal door. I didn't move, didn't blink. I counted my breaths in my head, trying to slow them down. 1, 2. Nothing happened. No knocking. No voice calling out for help. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that presses against your skin. Minutes passed. 10. Maybe 15. My legs cramped from holding the same position, but I didn't dare shift my weight. Then, a faint metallic click. The door handle. Someone was testing it. Slowly. Carefully. My heart slammed so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. The handle turned again, firmer this time. Locked. I'd locked both doors the moment I parked. Thank God. Whoever was outside didn't give up immediately. They tried once more, then stopped. The silence returned, heavier than before. I waited for the footsteps to retreat. They didn't. That was the part that terrified me the most. Not knowing. If they had walked away, I would have heard it. Snow makes sure of that. But there was nothing. No movement. No retreating steps. Just the sense that someone was still there, standing inches from me, listening. Time stretched. My mind raced through every possibility. A stranded motorist? A hunter lost in the woods? But no one stands silently in sub-zero temperatures for that long. Not unless they don't feel the cold. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. That's when I heard it. Another set of footsteps, then another. 3 distinct patterns in the snow. They stopped together. I heard murmuring, soft, whispering sounds. But the words didn't make sense. The language wasn't English. It wasn't anything I recognized. The voices were wrong somehow. Too flat. Too close. I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms. Whatever was out there wasn't just one of them, and they weren't leaving. I don't know how long I stayed there, frozen in the dark, listening to those whispers drift through the snow. All I knew was this. I had stopped in the wrong place, at the wrong time, and something out there had noticed. Something that didn't knock, didn't call out. Something that simply waited. And that was only the beginning. I wish I could tell you that fear dulls with time, that after a few minutes your body adjusts, your thoughts slow down, and panic fades into something manageable. But that's not how it works. Fear doesn't fade. It layers. It stacks itself quietly on top of every second until the weight becomes unbearable. I lay there in the dark cab, staring at nothing, listening to 3 unseen presences stand just outside my truck, whispering in a language that scraped against my nerves. The heater clicked softly as it cycled, the only mechanical sound left in the world. I didn't dare move. I told myself they would get bored. People knock. People shout for help. People move on when no one answers. But whatever stood outside wasn't behaving like people. They didn't test the locks again. They didn't knock. They just stayed. And somehow, I could feel their attention. It felt like standing naked in the dark, knowing someone was inches away, staring. Minutes passed. My phone buzzed suddenly in my hand as the screen dimmed and locked itself. I nearly screamed. I slapped it silent and pressed it against my chest, heart hammering so violently it made my vision blur. That's when I heard it. A slow scrape along the side of the truck. Not claws, not fingernails. Something softer, like fabric brushing metal. Then another sound, closer to the rear of the cab. A faint, rhythmic tap. 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 Someone was touching the truck, exploring it, learning it. The murmurs shifted position. I couldn't see them, but I could track them by sound, by instinct. One voice stayed near the driver's door. Another moved toward the passenger side. The third circled. That one made my skin crawl the most. The whispers weren't loud, but they weren't distant either. They hovered just outside the thin metal walls, slipping through cracks, vibrating the air. The language twisted in strange ways. Some sounds were stretched too long. Others cut off abruptly, like broken breath. It reminded me of recordings, played at the wrong speed. I pressed my back harder against the sleeper bunk and closed my eyes. I don't know why I did that. Closing your eyes doesn't make danger disappear. But some part of me wanted to disappear first. I checked the time again. Almost an hour had passed since I parked. Snow continued to fall. That meant the longer I waited, the worse my chances became. The truck could freeze in place. The tires could sink. The road conditions could worsen to the point where even driving away would be impossible. I had to leave. Whatever was outside, I had to risk it. My mind began building a plan, piece by piece, slow and careful. I would move silently to the driver's seat, pull the curtains forward in one smooth motion, start the engine immediately, throw it into gear, and go. No hesitation. No looking around. If I stopped to see them, I wasn't sure I'd be able to leave. I listened closely. The whispering faded slightly, drifting toward the front of the truck. Footsteps crunched in the snow, movies away. Just a few yards. That was my opening. I slid off the bunk, boots touching the floor with exaggerated care. Every sound felt amplified. I reached the driver's seat and sat down, muscles coiled tight, hands hovering inches from the ignition. I took one last breath. Then, I yanked the curtains open. The headlights flared to life, slicing through the snowfall. For a split second, I didn't see anything. Just white. Snow. Dark trees. Relief flooded my chest. And then my eyes adjusted. 3 figures stood in the beam. A man, a woman, and a child. They were maybe 20 feet ahead of the truck, facing me, completely still. Their clothes were wrong, thin, outdated, darkened with moisture and something darker beneath. Their skin looked gray. Not pale. Gray. Like something drained the color from them and forgot to put it back. The child stood slightly in front of the adults. He raised his hand and waved. Slowly. Casually. Like he'd just seen a neighbor drive by. My stomach dropped. I didn't think. I twisted the key and slammed my foot on the accelerator. The engine roared. The tires spun. The truck lurched forward. Then stopped. The rig shook violently, as if something beneath it had grabbed hold. "Come on. Come on," I whispered, my voice breaking. The wheels screamed against packed snow and ice. The figures began to move. Not running, walking. Straight toward me. Their movements were unnatural. Too smooth, too synchronized, like they were sharing one mind. The child kept waving. I shoved the gear again, harder this time, rocking the truck back and forth. The engine strained. The smell of burning rubber filled the cab. They were closer now. Close enough that I could see their faces clearly. Or what was left of them. The man's jaw hung at a slight angle, as if it had once been broken and healed wrong. Dark stains streaked his chin and neck. The woman's mouth was red, too red, like it had been painted over and over again. Her eyes were wide and glassy, never blinking. The child. God. The child's face looked almost normal. Too normal. Except for the eyes. They were hollow, not dark, empty, like windows into a room that had long since been abandoned. They stopped a few feet from the grill. I screamed and slammed the accelerator again. Something beneath the truck gave way. The rig surged forward. The figures didn't jump back. They didn't react at all. I drove straight through them. I didn't look. I couldn't. I kept my eyes locked on the road ahead, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, heart pounding like it wanted out. Only after I'd driven 100 yards did I risk glancing into the side mirror. They stood where I'd left them, unmoved, watching. The child waved again. Then the darkness swallowed them. I drove for nearly 20 minutes without slowing down. Snow reduced visibility to almost nothing. The world narrowed to headlights and instinct. My breathing wouldn't slow. My hands trembled uncontrollably. Then the truck slid. Black ice. The rig fishtailed violently, pulling me toward the shoulder. I fought the wheel, correcting, praying. The truck skidded sideways and stopped at an angle, half buried near the edge of the road. The engine stalled. Silence rushed back in, louder than before. I sat there shaking, staring through the windshield at nothing but falling snow. Then I laughed. A broken, hysterical sound tore out of my throat. I was alive. Barely. I grabbed the company radio with shaking hands and called dispatch. My voice cracked as I explained I was stuck, that the truck had slid and wouldn't move. I left out the rest. What was I supposed to say? 3 dead-looking people tried to open my truck in the middle of the forest. Dispatch tracked my location and gave me directions to a nearby workshop, a few miles east. If I could reach it, they said, I'd be safe. The word echoed strangely in my head. Safe. I didn't want to leave the cab, but the snow was getting worse, and I needed to assess the situation. I layered up, jacket, gloves, scarf, and grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight. The door creaked as I opened it. Cold air slammed into me like a physical force. The forest loomed on either side of the road, dark and dense. I stepped down into the snow. That's when I saw the footprints. 3 sets, leading away from where the figures had stood. Not toward the road, toward the trees, toward the direction dispatch had given me. A chill crawled up my spine. They were going the same way. I stood there for a long time, staring at those footprints, trying to convince myself they belonged to someone else. Hunters, hikers, anyone. But deep down, I knew. I had 2 choices. Stay with the truck and risk freezing or being buried by snow, or follow the footprints toward whatever waited ahead. I tightened my grip on the flashlight and took my first step into the forest. The snow swallowed my boot with a soft crunch. The trees closed in behind me, and somewhere deep in the woods, I thought I heard a child laughing. I didn't sleep that night. Not because the bed at the motel was uncomfortable. Not because the storm outside kept rattling the windows like a fist demanding to be let in. I didn't sleep because every time I closed my eyes, I could still feel the steering wheel vibrating in my hands, still cold, still wrong, like something had traveled with me out of the storm and was now waiting patiently for me to notice it. I checked out of the motel just after sunrise. The clerk didn't ask how my night was. She just slid the receipt across the counter with a look that told me she already knew the answer. Outside, the world looked normal again. Too normal. Snow melted into dirty slush along the highway. Trucks roared past. Radios crackled with weather updates and country songs about heartbreak and highways. Normal is deceptive. Normal is how horror hides. By noon, I was back on the road heading east, the delivery deadline already blown. Dispatch called twice. I didn't answer. I didn't care about penalties anymore. I cared about distance, putting as many miles as possible between me and that stretch of mountain road where the snow had swallowed the world and something had stepped out of it. I told myself it was exhaustion, hypothermia, hallucinations. That explanation lasted until I checked my dash cam footage that night. I waited until I got home. My house sits outside a small town in western Pennsylvania. Nothing fancy. White siding, 2 floors, a narrow driveway, woods behind it thick enough to block out the neighbors. I bought it cheap after my divorce because it was quiet. Too quiet, I'd learn. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light flickered on by itself. I remember thinking, that's new. I unloaded my bag, locked the truck, and stood on the porch for a second longer than necessary, listening. The woods were still. No wind, no birds. The silence pressed in. Inside, the house smelled stale, like it always did after I'd been gone too long. I dropped my bag by the stairs and went straight to the kitchen, pouring a glass of water with shaking hands. My reflection in the microwave door looked older than I remembered. Eyes sunken, skin pale, like I hadn't been sleeping for weeks instead of one night. I sat at the kitchen table and pulled the memory card from the dash cam. I almost didn't watch it. There's a moment every person reaches when they know the truth might hurt more than ignorance, but they look anyway. I slid the card into my laptop and scrubbed through hours of footage until the snowstorm filled the screen. The headlights cut tunnels through the white, the road barely visible. My own breathing echoed faintly through the speakers. Then the woman appeared. Not suddenly. Not like a jump scare. She was already there. Standing on the shoulder of the road, facing away from the truck, hair plastered to her back by snow. The timestamp showed the moment I first slowed down. I leaned closer. She didn't move. I hit play. The truck slowed. The wipers dragged ice across the windshield. The woman remained still. Then, just before I rolled past her, the camera glitched. One frame. Just one. In that frame, her head was turned, looking directly into the camera. Her face wasn't blurred. It wasn't shadowed. It was wrong. Her eyes were too dark, like empty sockets filled with oil. Her mouth was open just enough to suggest she was breathing, but her chest never moved. Snow passed through her like smoke. I slammed the laptop shut. The house creaked. I froze. It was a normal sound, a house settling, but my body didn't believe that anymore. My body remembered how the road had gone silent, how even the storm had seemed to pause when she appeared. I forced myself to stand and walk through the house, checking every room. Doors locked, windows closed, nothing out of place. Still, the feeling followed me, that sense of being observed. That night, I dreamed of the road again. Only this time, I wasn't driving. I was standing in the snow, barefoot, the cold biting into my skin, while headlights approached from behind. I tried to turn around, but my neck wouldn't move. I woke up screaming. It was after that dream that things started happening inside the house. At first, it was small, the sound of footsteps upstairs when I knew I was alone. The TV turning itself on in the middle of the night, always tuned to static. Cold spots in the hallway that didn't match the temperature anywhere else. I blamed stress. Truckers learned to rationalize. If we didn't, we'd go crazy from the isolation. But rational explanations don't explain why I started finding wet footprints on the hardwood floor, bare feet, leading from the front door to the stairs. They didn't belong to me. I don't walk barefoot in winter. 3 days after I got home, I decided to dig deeper. I drove to the county records office. The woman on the mountain road had been wearing clothes from another era. That detail wouldn't leave my mind. Long coat, old boots, no reflective gear, no phone. I asked the clerk about accidents on Route 611 through the mountains. She raised an eyebrow. How far back? As far as you've got. She pulled records going back nearly 70 years. One entry stopped me cold. December 14th, 1986. Single vehicle accident. Female victim, early 20s. Vehicle lost control during snowstorm. Body never recovered. The name made my stomach drop. Evelyn Moore. Moore. The same name I'd found carved into the wooden cross near the old house on the mountain. I asked the clerk where the accident happened. She pointed to the map, the exact mile marker where I'd seen her. I drove home in silence. That night, I heard knocking. 3 slow knocks. Not on the front door, on the wall behind my bed. I sat up, heart pounding, staring at the dark outline of my bedroom door. The knocks came again. Closer. I whispered, "Who's there?" The house answered with a sound I can only describe as breathing. A long, wet inhale that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I didn't sleep at all after that. The next morning, I packed a bag. I told myself I was leaving for a few days, but deep down, I knew the truth. I was running. I drove west, no destination in mind, just away from the house. The radio crackled, losing signal as I passed through dead zones. Then the static shifted. A woman's voice whispered through the speakers. "Don't leave me." I swerved, nearly hitting the guardrail. The voice stopped. When I looked in the rearview mirror, the back seat was empty. But the mirror fogged over from the inside. A handprint appeared. Small, pale, pressing outward. I screamed and slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded to a stop on the shoulder of the road. I sat there shaking, tears streaming down my face, repeating, "This isn't real. This isn't real." The handprint faded. I drove back home, because some places don't let you leave until they're finished with you. That night, I went into the basement. I hadn't been down there in months. The light flickered on, revealing concrete walls and exposed beams. The air was damp, cold enough to sting my lungs. That's when I saw it, scratched into the concrete wall. A name. Evelyn, below it. Another word. Remember the basement door slammed shut behind me. The lights went out. And in the darkness, something whispered my name, the way a lover would. Soft, intimate, patient. "I've been waiting," she said. And that's when I finally understood. The woman on the road hadn't followed me. She had been here long before I ever arrived. I don't know how long I stood there in the dark basement. Time behaves differently when fear settles into your bones. Seconds stretch. Minutes collapse. Your mind starts inventing escape routes that your body already knows don't exist. The air was thick, damp, and cold enough to numb my fingers. I could hear something moving. Not footsteps, not breathing exactly, but a slow shifting sound, like fabric dragging across concrete. I whispered, "Evelyn." The name tasted wrong in my mouth. The darkness answered with a soft laugh. It came from everywhere, from the walls, from the ceiling, from inside my own chest. The basement light flickered back on. For a brief, merciful second, I thought I was alone. Then I saw her reflection in the washer door. She stood behind me, not the frozen woman from the mountain road. This Evelyn looked closer to human. Her skin was pale, but not translucent. Her hair hung damp around her face. Her clothes were old-fashioned, but intact, as if time had stopped treating her badly once she stopped being alive. Her eyes met mine through the reflection. "You finally came down," she said. Her voice wasn't threatening. That was the worst part. I turned around slowly. She stood at the bottom of the stairs, barefoot on the concrete, toes blue with cold. She didn't cast a shadow. The light bent around her like she was a hole punched into the world. "What do you want?" I asked. She tilted her head, studying me the way someone might study a familiar photograph. "I want you to remember," she said. "You drove past me." My stomach dropped. "I didn't know," I said quickly. "It was a storm. You thought I wasn't real," she finished. I swallowed hard. "I didn't hit you. I didn't cause the accident." She smiled faintly. "No," she said. "But you saw me." The basement door creaked upstairs. I hadn't heard it open. I hadn't heard anything open. The house groaned softly, like it was waking up. Evelyn took a step closer. The temperature dropped with her movement, frost crawling along the concrete floor. "People always think the worst thing is dying alone," she said. "But it's not." She raised her hand, pointing toward the wall where her name was carved. "It's being forgotten." Images flooded my mind without warning. A young woman driving through the mountains in 1986, headlights barely cutting through the snow, her car skidding, spinning, sliding off the road. The sound of metal folding, the silence afterward. Her climbing out, injured but alive, calling for help as the storm buried her voice. Truck headlights passing, cars slowing, drivers watching, no one stopping. I fell to my knees. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't know it was you. I didn't know this place." "You live where I waited," she said gently. "This land remembers me, and now you do too." The walls pulsed. I felt it then. The house wasn't haunted. It was a grave. Evelyn turned and began walking deeper into the basement, toward a section of wall I'd never noticed before. "Come with me," she said. "I can't," I said, shaking. "Please. I have a life. I drive. I tell stories." "You run," she corrected. She stopped and looked back at me. So did everyone else. The concrete wall cracked with a sound like breaking ice. Behind it was a narrow space, packed dirt, rotted wood, and something pale jutting from the soil. Bones. Human bones. Her bones. The smell hit me like a physical blow. "They searched," she said. "They searched for years. But the storm kept it secret, until the road brought you to me." I stared at the remains, my chest tight. "What happens now?" I asked. Evelyn knelt beside the shallow grave, her hand passing through the dirt like smoke. "Now," she said, "you finish the journey." The basement lights exploded. Darkness swallowed everything. I felt hands on my shoulders, not cold, not warm, but heavy, like gravity itself had decided to hold me in place. I screamed. The sound echoed into nothing. When I came to, I was lying on the basement floor, alone. The wall was solid again. No bones, no carving, no Evelyn. I stumbled upstairs, every nerve screaming. Morning light poured through the windows. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I saw the keys on the kitchen table. My truck keys. Beside them lay a folded piece of paper. My handwriting. Finish the road. I tried to throw the keys away. They came back. I tried to leave the house without them. The front door wouldn't open. I tried smashing a window. The glass didn't break. That night, I dreamed of the mountain again. Only this time, I was driving the same stretch of road, but I wasn't alone in the cab. Evelyn sat in the passenger seat, watching the snow. "You don't have to be afraid," she said. "You're good at this. You already know the way." I woke up behind the wheel of my truck. The engine was running. Snow fell thick around me. The mountain loomed ahead. I don't remember starting the drive. I only remember arriving. The storm was worse than before. The road vanished into white nothingness. My headlights struggled just like they had that first night. Then I saw her, standing exactly where she had stood before, facing away, waiting. My foot hovered over the brake. I knew what would happen if I stopped. I knew what would happen if I didn't. I slowed the truck, opened the door. The cold ripped into me instantly, biting through my clothes. Snow soaked my boots as I stepped onto the road. Evelyn turned around. Up close, her face was peaceful. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For seeing me." She stepped past me, toward the truck. The engine revved on its own. The door slammed shut. "No!" I shouted, running after it. The truck rolled forward, headlights blazing, disappearing into the storm. I collapsed onto the road. The snow fell harder. The world went quiet. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. Hypothermia. Severe exposure. Found by a snowplow driver just before dawn. They told me my truck had been recovered miles down the mountain. Empty. No damage. No explanation. They asked what happened. I told them I fell asleep at the wheel. They nodded. People like simple answers. I sold the house. I quit long-haul trucking. I moved to a city where the roads are always crowded and the lights never go out. And still, sometimes when I'm driving late at night and snow starts to fall, the radio fills with static. A woman's voice whispers through it, soft, grateful. Keep driving. And I do. Because some roads don't end when you leave them. Some roads remember you. And one day, they'll ask you to come back.